we dropped the largest bomb, the mother of all bombs, that it was called, the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan, on mountains where there was not even people inhabited, where the Taliban and ISIS-K were not really there. We just dropped it just to test the mother of all bombs. That's the type of pain that we inflicted. Welcome, which brought the guy
Oh
in.
yeah. Hey folks, you got me in mid conversation with Haris Tarin. Right now, he's the vice president of Muslim Public Affairs Council, but he was also in the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, where he was. Haris, give me that title because it's going to be very germane to what we're going to be talking about today.
I was Chief of Staff of Operation Allies Welcome, which brought in close to 200,000 Afghan allies in 2021 when the country fell to the Taliban, and which was also the operation that this individual, the shooter in Washington, D.C., came through.
So we're going to talk about the bullshit that the Trump administration has been spreading literally during Thanksgiving weekend. I am old enough to remember. Haris, you're old enough to remember. I see now you have the gray hairs like me, that presidents, whether they were Democrats or Republicans, they used to say, "Happy Thanksgiving. I pardon the turkey. Enjoy your family." This freak spends Thursday midnight posting just the most vile hate against immigrants, people of color, talking about sending us back to our third world countries, ending birthright citizenship, stripping, denaturalizing citizens, basically all the stuff that Stephen Miller and this Trump administration have always talked about. It's always been there, and specifically focusing on Afghan nationals, and then just of course taking a crack against Somalis, spreading hate against them like he did against the Haitian innocent Haitian immigrants who made Springfield, Ohio great again. Took a crack against Ilhan Umar because she's black Muslim. Took a crack against her hijab, swaddled in her hijab. And just today, Kristi Noem, when she isn't busy getting Botox in her face, again, spread nonsense against Afghans. And now they're going to, because of one Afghan national, Haris, they're going to stop the immigration processing of all Afghans. But if you're like a drug trafficker, like the ex-Honduras president, you'll get pardoned. If you're CZ of Binance, and literally a money launderer, you'll get pardoned. If you're Ghislaine Maxwell, you'll get a cushy a transfer. If you're 1,600 insurrectionists, you'll get pardoned. And one of them, by the way, the insurrectionist that Trump pardoned, just sexually assaulted a girl. But if you're one Muslim or one Afghan or one black person who does a crime, as you can see, the racist and anti-immigrants jump on it. Now, before we get into this, we're going to do a truth sandwich. Before we debunk all the BS, the really hateful BS, folks, and the reason why I've been watching my videos for the past 2 or 3 days, where I was supposed to be traveling and resting, but I didn't. Before we unpack all the hatred of a failing Trump campaign, which is negative double digits, Haris, in the economy, negative double digits on inflation, negative double digits on Epstein, and now negative double digits on immigration, they're like an old cankled band that has no new songs. So like they're in Las Vegas playing the old hits, and the only old hit they have is xenophobia. That's all they have. The only thing to keep the base together is xenophobia, xenophobia, xenophobia. Before we debunk all the stuff, though, I want to do something different. Haris has been in it like me. We're old men, 45. We came of age as college students in the war on terror, 9/11. We were there as 20, 21-year-olds. We were marching. We were part of the Muslim Student Association. So this has been our life. We have been in it. And Haris has been in it in a public role associated with the Muslim Public Affairs Council, one of the very few Muslim American organizations doing the good work. And then he left for DHS, and then he came back, right? So he knows this. But also what he is an Afghan refugee. His family came to this country as part of the first wave of Afghan refugees, thanks to Russia's invasion of Afghanistan. And at that time, in the early 80s, the Taliban were seen as freedom fighters, right? So before we get into all the bullshit, I want to do a truth sandwich, and a lot of people don't know this story, Haris. They don't know the story of Afghans, Muslims, and refugees in this country. So if you don't mind, I want you to share your story, and let's connect the dots and take the DeLorean. Let's talk about Afghans when they came here in the early 80s. Why did they come? Where did they come?
Well, thank you for having me, Wajahat. I think you're right. I mean, We have to cut through the BS and all of this, right? Because there's just so much xenophobia, so much bigotry, and so much BS that's being spewed right now about Afghans, about immigrants, that it's important to cut through this and allow the American people to see the reality and the truth. In terms of Afghanistan, the U.S. has had a long relationship with Afghanistan. The first time an Afghan leader came to the United States was during President Kennedy's tenure. President Kennedy hosted the then king of Afghanistan, Zahir Shah, who was modernizing Afghanistan. And we were actually courting the Afghans because we wanted them to be our partners in the Cold War at that time. We wanted to pull them away from the Soviet Union. Afghanistan is centrally located in Asia. It's right between Central Asia, South Asia, the Middle East, and even shares a small border with China. So Afghanistan is strategically located in this area where we were trying to gain influence and we were trying to push back against the Soviet bloc at that time, who had taken most of the Central Asian countries and turned them into communist outposts. And then, of course, the Soviet Union in 1979 invaded Afghanistan. And at that time, President Jimmy Carter, so we had Democratic and Republican presidents both, and we'll talk about this, who actually supported our relationship with Afghanistan. President Jimmy Carter at that time secretly, through the CIA, approved weapons and funding and financing to go to Afghanistan to what we called at that time, according to both President Carter and President Reagan, freedom fighters, and President Bush one, the freedom fighters of Afghanistan. And as you said, they were called the Mujahideen, the freedom fighters, and they were the prelude to the Taliban. But what we did with our allies, including Saudi Arabia, including Pakistan, including Central Asian countries, and even Israel to a certain extent, we provided many weapons to the Afghan freedom fighters, to the Mujahideen. We supported them. We supported then President Ziaul Haq in Pakistan, who actually helped lead the fight in support of the
The
Mujahideen.
military dictator who implemented martial law and led the Islamization of Pakistan,
Of
for those who
Pakistan.
don't.
Exactly. So we have a long history in that region. And then the Afghans did what we wanted them to do. They pushed back against the Soviet bloc. They defeated the Soviet Union. The small ragtag bunch of freedom, quote unquote, freedom fighters got together, pushed back, and dealt a heavy blow to the Soviet Union, which a year later, ultimately, the Soviet Union then collapsed, and all of those communist outposts, including the Central Asian ones, collapsed and became republics. And we saw the end of the Cold War at that time. So Afghanistan has played a key role in our deterrence policy towards the Soviet Union, modern day Russia, and China. So Afghanistan has been key to a lot of our strategic, what we call depth in Asia and South Asia. And so when we did that, we also welcomed a lot of refugees from Afghanistan in the 1980s, especially. From the beginning of the 1980s, my father, who was a diplomat, who had studied at the University of Nebraska, because we had an exchange program. The University of Nebraska had an exchange program with Afghanistan to bring Afghan students to Nebraska to study and then engage in diplomatic and educational exchanges. And so we welcomed a lot of Afghans, especially Afghan elites, the kind of the business class and the professional class. And so, like we did, my family came to the U.S. in 1986, and many Afghans. And as you know, because you grew up in Fremont, Wajahat, many Afghans settled in the Bay Area, in Fremont, California, in Northern Virginia, in New York, in Los Angeles. And
The
Afghans have
kite
been
runner, which was for many people's introduction to Afghans, Khalid Husseini, I know him. He's from Fremont. That was eventually, for those who don't know, a lot of Afghans went to Pakistan, they went to Germany, but then they went to Fremont, my hometown where I was born and raised. And many of them initially went there and stayed there, which is why if you read Kite Runner, you're like, oh yeah, Fremont from Kite Runner.
right. Right. I mean, the Kite Runner is now regular reading in most schools around this country. That was a very accurate portrayal of us, supporting Afghans, bringing Afghans here, and then Afghans establishing themselves. We have the former UN ambassador, Republican, U.S. ambassador to the UN, Zalmay Khalilzad, is an Afghan, and he was an Afghan in the Bush administration, and he even was a spillover in the Biden administration. So Afghan Americans have been in this country since the 1970s, and they have done extremely well. They're small business owners, they're entrepreneurs, they're lawyers, they're doctors. Like every other immigrant community, they've been able to establish themselves. I went from a refugee child, to working at the Department of Homeland Security and the National Security Council, leading our response. I was the Chief of Staff of Operation Allies Welcome. When we went back into Afghanistan in 2001 after 9/11, we stayed there for 20 years. And we had thousands upon thousands of Afghans who supported our mission in Afghanistan. So this gentleman that came, this individual who came from
The Afghan
Afghanistan,
national shooting suspect who shot and
this
killed.
Afghan national who came, he came through the third wave of Afghan refugees. But these individuals are not just normal refugees. This is what we have to understand. From 2001 to 2021, when we stayed in Afghanistan, we relied heavily on local Afghans to support our missions, to do our night raids, to get intelligence on the Taliban and ISIS-K, to do kind of the dirty work for us, right?
Also translators,
Translators, truck drivers, chefs, cooks. I mean,
reconnaissance. Yeah.
reconnaissance, intelligence missions, everything that we didn't want to do because we didn't want to put our servicemen and women in harm's way. We had local Afghans do it. And many of these local Afghans did it with pride and with joy because they also wanted a free country. They wanted a country free of extremism. They wanted a country where the girls can go to school. They actually bought into democracy. They bought into human rights and civil rights and women's rights. They bought into a lot of this. And then what did we do in 2001? We withdrew. And we gave the country back to the same people we took it from, the Taliban.
Well,
Now
can I
imagine
stop
this,
on
right?
this?
If you ever
Well,
think,
Haris, before you go, because I think people kind of skirt over this, and I don't want to. Because Dick Cheney died and he got this type of hagiography, whitewashed send off, which I know is same thing's going to happen to George W. Bush, same thing's going to happen to Condoleezza Rice, same thing's going to happen to Donald Trump, folks. This is how the town works. They help each other. These were war criminals. The war on terror was a choice. 19 foreign hijackers brought down the two towers. None of them were Afghans, none of them were Iraqis. And the United States of America made a choice then to invade Iraq based off on trumped up fake evidence of mobile laboratories of weapons of mass destruction and anthrax and yellow cake, all bullshit. Colin Powell and Netanyahu, remember that? Making the case before the nation.
Mhm.
And then, what people sometimes forget, and I don't want them to forget this, is there were 19 foreign hijackers, none of them from Afghanistan, none of them from Iraq. America made a choice to go and do warfare in Afghanistan, Iraq, like you said, for 20 years. Can you just really briefly talk to us about the damage and the trauma that the United States inflicted upon Afghanistan for 20 years?
I mean, it's immense. So I'll talk about it in a couple of different ways, right? Like you said, none of the Afghans, none of the hijackers were Afghan, none of them were Pakistani, none of them were Iraqi. Where we inflicted the most damage in Afghanistan and the border region of Afghanistan and Pakistan as well, where we droned the heck out of that whole area. I mean, there was so many innocent people died in that drone warfare on the border of Pakistan and Afghanistan that people kind of lost count. And there's a documentary that talks about the buzzing sound, where there was constant buzzing sound over the border region of Afghanistan and Pakistan.
And also in Yemen.
PTSD, huh?
Also in Yemen, the children have PTSD.
Also in Yemen, that's right, PTSD. So the amount of we dropped the largest bomb, the mother of all bombs, that it was called, the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan, on mountains where there was not even people inhabited, where the Taliban and ISIS-K were not really there. We just dropped it just to test the mother of all bombs. That's the type of pain that we inflicted. Hundreds of thousands of Afghans died. Over 1 million Iraqis in the two wars died. Right, over 100,000 Pakistani soldiers and tribesmen on the border area died. And then, not only that, the tragedy of the war on terror that no one talks about, that I talked about on NPR the other day. When you look at what happened to this guy who committed the shooting in Washington, there are over 35,000 U.S. veterans from the Iraq and Afghanistan war from 2001 to 2021 who died of suicide. 35,000. Imagine this, Wajahat. There was 3,000 Americans who were killed in a terrorist attack of 9/11. 35,000 soldiers committed suicide from PTSD and major depression. Not only did we wreak havoc in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Pakistan, in Yemen, in Somalia, all of these places where we went to implement the war on terror, but we wreaked havoc on our own soldiers, on their families. We have thousands upon thousands of soldiers with major PTSD and depression. They don't have resources, mental health resources. The VA cannot treat them. They've become homeless. So the havoc that the war on terror wreaked on that region and our own country and our own veterans is immense. And we don't talk about that. And so when someone like Dick
Generational
Cheney
damage.
dies, huh?
Generational damage.
Generational damage. And when someone like Dick Cheney dies and we say, no, this guy was a war criminal, people decide to go to his funeral and celebrate him, even the mainstream politicians. If you ever have imposter syndrome if you ever think that you fail, remember this, Wajahat, that we went into Afghanistan, spent $2 trillion. We took that country from the Taliban. 20 years later, we gave it back to them.
That's right.
Imagine that failure, that level of failure. $2 trillion, thousands of American lives lost, thousands upon thousands of Afghans lost, and those same policymakers still today are here in Washington, D.C. behind me, and they're making the same type of policy. And we stained our image across the world because we still have Guantanamo Bay open, and which is a stain on our image and will be for the rest of history. So that is the type of damage that we inflicted on Afghanistan.
Before you talk about the Zero Unit and the CIA-backed unit, right? I do want to talk about this for a second before we talk about this man who was radicalized and the alleged suspect who shot and killed the two national. I think he killed. Unfortunately, one of them is dead. Another one is in extremely critical care. But I just want people to sit with that for a second. 19 foreign hijackers brought down the two towers and killed 3,000 people, and this country lost its mind after 9/11 and engaged in a multi-front failed war, traumatizing millions of people, killing more than 1 million Iraqis, killing hundreds of thousands of Afghans, right? I just want people to sit there and, if indeed Muslims and Afghans and Iraqis and Somalis and Yemenis were these barbaric savages, could you imagine, God forbid, what would happen if the shoe was on the other foot?
100%.
I mean, I don't want really people to think about it. You would think if this was true, all the Afghans who were here would just straight up get their guns and join militias and become oath keepers and engage in a violent insurrection. The number one domestic terror threat is still white supremacy and radical right-wing groups. These people didn't do that despite even the Palestinians. Look at the Palestinians. The United States, both Democratic and Republican presidents have helped commit a genocide. Do you see Palestinians, Iraqis, and Afghans, despite what the United States has done to these people, respond in the way that these privileged white MAGA folks have responded just because they're pissed off that brown people are in this country? Haris.
So I'm sitting a block away from the White House right now in my office. We're a block away from where the tragic shooting took place, but I'm also a block away from where a vigil is taking place by Afghan Americans right now in support of the National Guard and those two individuals. Afghan Americans are stepping up because they want to be here. They've come to this country by choice. They've served this country. As we said earlier, so many of them were translators. They say, who are the biggest supporters of Afghan refugees in this country? You'll be shocked. They are veterans. They are military veterans, American veterans. Sean Van Diver, who's a good friend of mine, runs an organization out of San Diego, California. And every day he's here in Washington, D.C., advocating on the Hill to get Afghans to get status so that their immigration papers are actually adjudicated, because they were supported by these Afghans when they were in Afghanistan and their lives were saved. We saved so many American service members because of these individuals. So that is something to consider and take into consideration. The people who were upset the most about the immigration policy of this administration towards Afghans and Somalis and Iraqis is the veteran community. So that's something that we have to take into consideration. Now, if you think about these zero units and where this individual came from,
can you explain the zero unit?
I'm definitely going to do that. So, as I mentioned, when we went into Afghanistan and we went into Iraq and we go into these foreign lands, which we don't know much about. You remember when Ted Cruz told Tucker Carlson, when Tucker Carlson asked him, "What's the population of Iran?" He said, "I don't know the population of Iran." Tucker Carlson said, "Well, you want to invade a whole country and you don't know the population?" Remember, most of our policymakers don't know jack about the countries that we go into invade and engage in combat in. And we didn't know much about Afghanistan either. So when we go into a country, when we went into Afghanistan, we rely heavily on the locals to do the intelligence work, to do the law enforcement work, to do the surveillance work, to support us on the ground, and especially in a rugged terrain like Afghanistan, where there's mountains everywhere. So what the CIA did in 2004 and 2005, the CIA created what were called the zero units. And in different parts of Afghanistan, they created these units where these individuals would be brought on by the CIA. They would be trained. They went through multiple background checks, including mental health screenings, including background checks, lie detector tests, I mean, physical tests, so much screening that goes into you joining an intelligence unit. They went through all of that. The CIA then had them on their payroll, and they would collect intelligence on the Taliban, on ISIS-K, and other terrorist groups in that region to bring back to the US, to the CIA and the US intelligence community. So they had these squads in different parts of Afghanistan. This individual was actually in southern Afghanistan, close to Kandahar, Afghanistan, where he was part of this elite CIA unit. So that means this person went through multiple layers of security, not just one security, not just like the Department of Homeland Security, USCIS, Refugee Asylum Security. No, no. He went through intelligence, national security, mental health, lie detector tests. He went through multiple tests that the CIA make sure that he implemented. And then after we brought him to the U.S. through Operation Allies Welcome, and I'll talk about what Operation Allies Welcome is. When Afghanistan fell, when Kabul fell to the Taliban, there were people who were our allies who felt their lives were going to be in danger, and the Taliban would then kill them. And so what they did was that we brought over.
Oh, well, I think, Art, that's important. Real quick, before you
Yeah.
go on, these were the men and women who, for 20 years, helped the U.S. Army as translators, as intelligence, as drivers. They risked their lives. The Taliban saw them as traitors. These are the people who wanted to get rid of the Taliban. They wanted a free country, and in exchange, knowing full well that they were risking their lives and their family's security to get rid of the Taliban by helping the United States, they were promised in exchange that if things don't work out, you and your family can come to America. Don't worry. Trust us. Trust us, America. You help us and we'll help you. These are the people that we, and I'm using this word and you tell me because you were part of the transfer. I say that this country betrayed.
Yes. So precisely, precisely. So they gave their lives. They were living under the fear, and their families were living under the fear of retribution by the Taliban because we were supporting the U.S. mission. So what Congress actually did, it's not just the Biden administration, but what Congress actually did was Congress created a special visa program called SIV, the special it's a special visa program, a special immigrant visa program. It was created for the Afghans and it was created for the Iraqis. Now, if you put your life at risk and if you put your family's life at risk of helping the Americans, you got a chance to come to America. This is a small number. There was millions of these people, but a small number of them who really did this work actually were able to then come to the U.S. and get safety and security in the U.S. They did this. We promised them. Congress created a whole new immigration visa process for them, and the Obama administration, the Trump one administration, the Biden administration, all of them implemented the SIV program and brought Afghan nationals over. And over 200,000 over the last maybe 10 years, more than 200,000 people came, and they've all done extremely well. They've all either they've gone to school, they've integrated into society, they've integrated into communities, started businesses, done really well for themselves. Now, this individual, even though he went through all this vetting, probably saw crazy, crazy things when he was in Afghanistan.
Well, I mean, did you see what his friend said? His friend, according to his friend, based on what he saw done in Afghanistan based on what he probably was part of with this Zero Unit, which was notorious for acts of barbarism, this paramilitary force. His friend says that this shooter, whose name I don't know, right, the suspect, the Afghan suspect, was radicalized. That's what his friend says.
Yeah, I mean, these guys saw, like I told you, if our own veterans were taking their own lives because of the PTSD and because of the major depression of what they saw in Afghanistan and Iraq. Imagine these guys. These guys don't have any resources in any. So this guy probably saw some crazy things, right? He saw murders, he saw beheadings, he saw some really horrible, I mean, family members dying in front of you, being killed in front of you. So he definitely was
Back and trained by the CIA.
and trained by the CIA. And if you look at his story, this guy was very unstable. So what he would do is for months upon months, he would not leave a dark room in his apartment in Seattle, close to Seattle, Washington. He wouldn't talk to his wife. He wouldn't talk to his kids. He was manic. So then he would come out of that episode and he would take long cross country trips randomly without telling his family. He had 5 boys that he was trying to support and he couldn't maintain a stable job. So we brought these individuals over that we had promised. We said, we're going to help you and give you resources. And they come here. What do we do here? We cut all refugee assistance for them. This administration cut millions upon millions of dollars of refugee assistance programs. We cut all aid to these individuals. They can't pay rent. They can't find jobs. They haven't been able to learn English. Instead of actually investing in these people to make their lives easier so that they can become productive citizens, what do? We make them suffer. We make these hundreds of thousands of people, we put them in immigration limbo. Imagine the level of anxiety that these people are all facing now when when this administration says there's a blanket denial or a blanket review of everyone who came to this country since 2001 in the fall of Afghanistan. If you're trying to make people more comfortable, if you want to make sure that they're integrating in society, why would you make them more anxious, more depressed? Why would you give them more anxiety to deal with than actually helping reintegrate them or integrate them into society and find resources? And there are hundreds of American-led NGOs that are trying to do that. Both veterans groups, civic organizations around the country, churches, synagogues, mosques, they're trying to help these folks. And what do? We make it harder on these people.
Well,
So it's
I think it's important what you're saying is the Trump administration that in addition to gutting the NIH, in addition to gutting CDC, in addition to killing USAID, in addition to gutting
HHS.
veterans,
Yeah.
the VA, in addition to gutting refugee services, has now lowered the threshold for amount of refugees to come, the record lowest number of 7,500, with preference given to, wait for it, white refugees who aren't even
From
refugees
South
from South
Africa.
Africa.
Afrikaners, not even white. They're not white refugees. They're
Yeah, that's what I think. White
Afrikaners,
refugees.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, these are
bullshit.
Afrikaners from South Africa who have stable lives, who actually have land, but we chose to bring them. You know why? Because Elon Musk and his friend JD Vance says that South Africa is persecuting Afrikaners. This is
Which is a
absolutely
lie. The white
nonsense.
genocide is a Nazi conspiracy theory that has been
It's
spread for
it's
years
an
by Elon
Elon
Musk,
Musk conspiracy. Elon
and now
Musk
it's in
led
Trump's ear.
conspiracy.
And now it's in Trump's ear. And so, literally, this administration, openly white supremacist folks, we'll get into it in a second. I'm not just using that lightly, has now said, hey, you Afghans who helped us, F you. You privileged white South Afrikaners, we're going to promote a Nazi bullshit white genocide conspiracy theory that literally has been spread by white supremacists, that has been debunked by everyone, but doesn't matter. And we're going to bring you in. So, preference to white nationalists and also white quote unquote refugees, but actual Afghans who helped us, F you. And as of today, now, the DHS secretary, well, let's actually talk about this real quick and we'll circle back. But I want to talk to you about what's happening right now in the aftermath of this tragic shooting, where when there's a white person, no one talks about it. We don't hear about Tyler Robinson, who allegedly shot and killed Charlie Kirk. We don't hear about Vance Bolter, the MAGA radicalized guy by QAnon who killed Melissa Hortman and her husband, had a list of 70 people. We don't hear about the radicalized MAGA guy who burned down the Mormon church. We don't hear about the 1,600 violent insurrectionists, one of them who just sexually assaulted a kid, right? All of that is fine. We don't talk about the number one domestic terror threat, radical right-wing terrorism and white supremacists. The DOJ folks scrubbed that study a couple of months ago. They scrubbed that study. But when there's one Afghan national who was trained by the CIA, worked in the Unit, probably the most vetted Afghan national of all the nationals, who was granted asylum by the Trump administration. When he does it, they have used this, Haris, and I'm sure you've been paying attention because you're part of the Muslim Public Affairs Council. You've seen the level of Islamophobia and hate. I've gotten it. You've gotten it. They've used this to Trojan horse their white nationalist agenda. They've gone all in, especially folks, if you haven't followed, because most likely you were normal, unlike these freaks, and celebrated your family. They want to deport people back to third world countries. Donald Trump used that word. They attacked Somali refugees after attacking Haitian refugees. They want to end birthright citizenship. And like Haris said, now they want to immediately end the processing of all immigration requests relating to Afghan nationals. This was Kristi Noem, DHS secretary today. The Homeland Security, DHS government, the Twitter account yesterday, Haris, I don't know if you followed, they, for the second time, posted remigrate, which is only a word used in white supremacist circles, which means ethnic cleansing. They did it in October. I talked about it on the left hook. They did it again yesterday. I'm sure you saw the Labor Department with Abraham Lincoln, the 11 stars of the Confederacy, using neo-Nazi language. That was yesterday. And then today, the Homeland Security post this ABC This Week interview with Kristi Noem, and I'll quote, "The monster who carried out the attack in D.C. should never have been in this country. The Biden administration let him and countless others in, an act of national self-sabotage. Effective immediately, processing of all immigration requests relating to Afghanistan nationals has been stopped indefinitely pending further review of security and vetting protocols. Please join us in continuing to pray for the families of Specialist Sarah Beckstrom and Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, who should have never been there in the first place." Your response to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, who thankfully you did not serve under.
Correct. And that's why I left DHS. So let's be honest. Let's be completely honest. They are using not just Kristi Noem and DHS, but the white nationalists, the bigots, the xenophobes like Laura Loomer, like Randy Fine, the guy who spent way too much time in the congressional cafeteria, the congressman from Florida. These guys are using this tragedy. This is a tragedy. They're using this tragedy for their xenophobic and anti-immigrant agenda. Simple. Islamophobic, xenophobic, and anti-immigrant agenda. You saw just 2 days ago, it's not just Afghanistan and Somalia. They're calling it the third world countries, a list of 19 countries whose green card holders now will be reviewed, and their green cards will be reviewed, and their applications will be stopped indefinitely. This is what they're using this.
Trump said 2 days ago he will suspend immigration from all third world countries, and they have to protect Western civilization. They have not defined third world country. They have not defined Western civilization, but I think I have
But remember, he also created something called the Golden Visa, right? If you have $5 million, you can actually buy a visa to the US and get residency. But if you go through an actual vetted process and you are deserved to be in this country and you want to be in this country,
1 million and a 5 million. So he has a 1 million
and 5 million.
gold and a 5 million platinum.
Right, correct. 1 and 5 million. So this is not about security. Let's be honest. This is not about security. This is not about vetting. This has nothing to do with any of this. As I told Associated Press yesterday, I've been on the inside at DHS. We have the most secure and strict vetting protocols and process in the world of any country. Like, hands down, of any country in the world. We even look at now, and the Biden administration did this, not only the Trump administration, we even look at social media posts. So if you put up a social media post that criticizes America, you're most likely not going to get into this country. So it's not about vetting. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with an agenda, a xenophobic agenda that white nationalists and xenophobes and extreme pro-Israel groups are now using to push back against any criticism of the state of Israel, of the U.S. government, and they want to roll back. It's simple. They don't want brown people in this country. If you're white, you can come from South Africa. We won't say anything about Ukraine. We won't say anything about Eastern Europe. You can still continue to come in. But if you're brown, if you're coming from quote unquote third world countries, but those are all brown countries, we will not let you in. And If you're a former president of a brown country in Latin America, who's on our side, you're a drug dealer and you were proud of actually bringing in drugs in this country and giving and putting it on American streets, we will also pardon you and forgive you, even though you got a 40-year sentence for drug trafficking. So this has
That
nothing to do
quote,
with
Haris, if
vetting
I'm making
security.
up, on Friday, the ex-Honduran president who's serving 40 plus years for drug trafficking, literally working hand in hand with drug cartels, Donald Trump said he would pardon them. And the next day, he essentially almost declared war with Venezuela and shut down the airspace
Yeah.
and said, we're going to protect from drug traffickers because he probably has dementia or he just doesn't give a shit. Make it make
No,
sense, Haris.
it's just that they don't care. It has nothing. There's no rhyme or reason, Wajahat. There's no rhyme or reason to the policies that are going into immigration. It is xenophobia. It is xenophobic. It is people like Stephen Miller. It is Sebastian Gorka. It is people like that who run the immigration policies in this White House, who make the policies, and then they've got folks at DHS or who are implementing this policy. No one asked this question. When I was at DHS, we had an office called the Office of Prevention. It was a prevention of terrorism and mass violence and mass shooting. Who's running that office now in this administration? A 21-year-old former grocery bagger who was a political appointee. No one's asking why he wasn't on top of this.
Thomas Fugate.
Why? Sorry?
Thomas Fugate, 22-year-old former
There you go.
grocer, who's the head of the CTC Center to prevent, what is it, countering
CP3.
violent extremism.
CP3, the Center for Prevention of Program Prevention, Violence Prevention, Mass Shootings, all of that was created at the Department of Homeland Security, and there was a lot of investment that had gone into that center, so you can prevent shootings like this and acts of terror and mass shootings and targeted killings. Who's running it? A 22-year-old when he was 21 when he was appointed. So let's be honest with ourselves. This has nothing to do about security protocols, but vetting, security, national security. It has nothing to do with that. It is xenophobes who sit across the street and who are taking advantage of this moment and this tragedy and turning it against immigrants.
And look, he said, a very happy Thanksgiving to all our great American citizen patriots who've been so nice, allowing our country to be divided, disrupted, carved up, murdered, beaten, mugged, and laughed at, along with certain other foolish countries throughout the world for being politically correct, just plain stupid when it comes to immigration. That was on November 27th. He later called the governor the R word. He went against Ilhan Omar because, of course, Black Muslim woman, went against hijab, went against Somali people, decided to mock and ridicule them. I would permanently pause migration from all third world countries to allow the U.S. system fully recover, terminate all the millions of Biden illegal admissions, including those signed by Sleepy Joe Biden's auto pen. Then he doubled down on the failed National Guard policy, which a judge just a week ago said it was illegal for him to deploy these National Guard members. I'm in D.C., Virginia with Haris. We've seen them. They do nothing. They should be at home. Now
It's
he's doubled
sad.
down and said he wants
It's
500
very
more.
sad, Wajahat. It's very sad because the National Guard is actually an amazing American institution if you look at it. These are citizen soldiers. These are people who take a couple of days out of the month, spend a weekend, and they're serving. These are people who actually want to do a little good in their in their free time, who want discipline. It's actually the National Guard to me is one of the best services in our country,
And he's
and we
made them
should
into
do.
targets. He's made them into
This is
targets.
the problem, right? The problem is they're standing at metro stations, at a train station. This shooting took place while these two young men and women were standing at a metro station, their guard down. They can't have their weapons drawn all the time. We're putting our own service members in harm's way and making them standing targets. They're literally standing targets for people who are deranged and people who want to take out, their deranged fantasies on our soldiers and our service members. This is ridiculous. These guys, you know what I've seen the National Guard do here in Washington, D.C.? People ask them for directions. People ask them where shops are. That's wrong. That's a dereliction
People
of
pose with,
duty.
I don't know if you've seen with the Union Station. I know you go there oftentimes. I do. There's like these mini tanks. People just take photos. Like tourists take photos with them, and they smile. The National Guard members smile.
Imagine
They're
the
just
tax dollars that are being wasted. Imagine the tax dollars. that are being
But
wasted.
I've said this, and two things can be true at the same time. That this Afghan national, what he did was a tragedy. This is a murder. I have not seen anybody, a Democrat, an Afghan, a Muslim group. I've seen all the Muslim groups condemn it. Right? The people who are salivating, getting boners because they realized they could use this to promote their agenda were the Randy Fines, the Laura Loomers, and
Guess
MAGA.
what happened with Laura
Salivate.
Loomer and Grok today? Laura Loomer X and
Twitter.
said no American Muslim organization has condemned the shooting. You know what Grok did when they said no, the Muslim Public Affairs Council, my organization, actually condemned it the same day we put out a statement. These people are liars. They are just plain liars. Even their own right wing platform corrects them when they
Even their Nazi AI bot.
yeah.
Like even the Nazi AI bot. He goes, listen, listen. I'll try my best. I'll do what I can to make Elon Musk look cool, and I'll say he's the most brilliant man. But this is a bridge too far. Even I, the Nazi AI bot, cannot lie. Folks, they're so desperate, and I don't want to mention this, and I'll tie it into something personal, and then get back to you. So, I'm on vacation with my family, with the in-laws. I was supposed to not do anything, Haris, but I've done like three. We're workaholics. I've been working.
Yeah.
I just realized I've been working, and so I saw this. This is our job. So I saw this post, this disgusting, ugly Thanksgiving Day post, where this freak talks about sending all of us back to third world countries, and then talking about denaturalizing us, and then talking about saving Western civilization, and reading Laura Loomer and Stephen Miller, and using this tragic murder to promote in Trojan horse their white nationalist agenda openly, nakedly, shamelessly. That's what Stephen Miller's been trying to do, folks, since the summer, according to the Wall Street Journal. That's why he unleashed ICE agents against Home Depot and 7-Eleven in LA, because he wants provocation, because he wants incitement, because he wants to implement the Insurrection Act. He's talked about it again and again and again. But guess what happened? The LAPD, that really flaming leftist LAPD did a tweet thanking the LA community for their peaceful organization and response. So they haven't gone in their Rackstack fire. They tried in the summer. They tried with the murder of Charlie King. They kept blaming they and them and they and them at the left. It wasn't. It was Tyler Robinson. Then with this, they tried to blame the left again, try to blame the Democrats who said don't follow illegal orders. They blame you. They blame me. And now it's like, whoopsie. He was given asylum during your administration, and he worked for the CIA. And a judge said those National Guard members should have been home and illegally deployed. So he's doubled down on now his unpopular anti-immigration stance. People are against the National Guard being deployed. A majority of people are against ICE. He's negative double digits on the economy, on Epstein, on America First now with his war in Venezuela. That's cracking the base. They're not for this. Supporting Israel, they're not for this. So now he's bringing 500 more National Guard members. As all this is happening, Haris, I'm sure you've noticed in the past week. I know you do because you have the data. I know the people who you work with. I have seen a vicious uptick in rampant, blatant Islamophobia, nativism, anti-Muslim bigotry. They are coming all out. Like they're literally saying, "We're going to kill you. We're going to come after you." I've had death threats the last 3 days. I'll share it with folks. I did this post. Which kind of like, a lot of people watched it. I was shocked people saw it. It was the one, if you go to the left hook right now, it's called, I'll tell you exactly what it's called. It's the one that said, Dear hate mongers, we aren't going back. And I was addressing Haris, these people, the white supremacists, the nativists, and I can't help it, Haris. I refuse to bend the knee. I refuse to be a coward. So I played it like Bugs Bunny, and I deliberately said to these white supremacists and hate mongers, specifically, I said, you've already lost. We're not going back. I said, just to piss them off, and this is going to piss them off again. We're a breeding people. There's too many of us. There's too many brown people, too many Asian people, too many black people, and too many white people who are friends, right? They took that clip, selectively edited it, and rebrandished it like they always do with Don Lemon, Joy, and me. And they said, look at what Waj has said against white people. There were 1,500 people watching me. Many of them are white, and they said, yeah, Waj, you go. They knew I was talking about the white supremacists and bigots. So now, for the past 2 days, this has gone viral. And Wokeness is an account that deliberately does this. Some coward loser who probably desperately wants to date one of
Is it
our women.
based in Israel or India?
We don't know. And Wokeness might be one of the rare, actually, MAGA accounts based in America. Hides behind an avatar, right? Just some loser, probably with like, a triple chin, who probably has a shitty ass and doesn't wash his ass. Just some loser. I know he's watching. You're a loser. Show your face. Me and Haris show our face, right? So as a result, I've had, and I know you get this also. I'm going to bring it up to you because I saw you do something yesterday also. I've had family members from Pakistan. I had my mom, I had my dad, I had my wife, I had my in laws say, "Watch, man, they're doing death threats against us, against you, against your kids, against your family. Please take it down." And then they're saying things like, maybe you shouldn't talk against white supremacy, maybe lower the temperature. And what I say is, they're like the Incredible Hulk from Avengers. They're always angry. It doesn't matter,
It
Harris.
doesn't
They're
matter.
angry that we speak Spanish. They're angry that we're here. They're angry that you're successful. They're angry that Michelle Obama has toned arms. They're angry that who's the singer? Bad Bunny is from Puerto Rico.
But
They're
they're
angry
even
about the
angry
life
at
of the
white people. Like this is the thing, right? They're
They're
angry at
always angry.
Taylor Swift, right? They're
Yeah.
it's not like they're angry only against like they're just plain simple angry, and they use tragedies, they use incidents like what took place in Washington to push their perverted agendas. Laura Loomer has an alliance with white nationalist neo Nazis. She is a Jewish woman. Do you know what they would do to a Jewish woman? Do you know what they think about her and her beliefs and her background and her support for the state of Israel? These guys are just straight up bigots. There's no excuse for
But you
them.
know what she said? You know what she said last week? According to her tweets, not me, Laura Loomer said the GOP has a Nazi problem. Not me and Harris, the GOP. Laura Loomer said it. And Jillian Michaels, the fitness trainer who is lesbian and has a black adopted child, just said with Megyn Kelly, "I'm a proud white nationalist." And I said, I sincerely pray for your child. These people have a loser narrative. I'm talking about white supremacists and bigots and hate markers. And I tell them, you don't have to live your life in fear. Join the rest of us. Join multiculturalism. Join diversity. Enjoy seasoned chicken. Wash your ass. Like, like literally enjoy our food, enjoy our music. And that includes white folks. That includes white folks, black folks, brown folks, Asian folks. Because folks,
Everyone.
everyone, it's a race is a social construct. Your narrative is a miserly, cruel narrative that is born from weakness and fear, and it will lose. But the sad part is, as especially
But
what you're telling,
that's why they're so desperate, Wajahat. They're desperate because they know America is changing. They're desperate because they know the actual majority of Americans actually appreciate seasoned food. They actually appreciate their brown, black, white neighbors. They actually appreciate having Bad Bunny perform at the Super Bowl. They actually appreciate having the ability to go to have Ethiopian food or Mexican food or Chinese food or
or
just the
or
regular,
or
the
loving
old
their
time,
biracial kids.
or biracial. The majority of Americans, I know this because when I travel around this country, Americans love diversity and will accept it. But what this group who has now who is now part of the government, what they've done is they've made bigotry, xenophobia, anti-immigrant sentiment, and white nationalism as part of their agenda because they know if they don't take extreme action now, America will forever change and they will be left behind in the dust bins of history, like Bull Connor was, right? Like
That's right.
like Joseph McCarthy was, who when we think about Bull Connor, when we think about Joseph McCarthy, what do we think? We think about losers. We think about horrible human beings who hated diversity, who hated the civil rights movement. We don't look back and say, "Oh wow, those are some really good people who contributed to the history of the United States of America." No, what will happen is the Stephen Millers and all of these individuals will be looked back with and said, "These guys were bigots, xenophobes, and that was an aberration in the history of this country." But we have to keep speaking up because just like you said, I got a phone call from my family in Phoenix, Arizona saying, "Do you want to tone it down a little bit?"
Well, talk to us about what you did yesterday. Your early '90s hip hop post that you did with the MPAC office, because you all made a decision to say, tell them what you did.
Yeah, I mean, listen, American Muslims are a successful, integral part of the American story and mosaic. Like we've been here, like we have stories at Impact from Muslims fighting in the Muslims fighting in the Revolutionary War, in the Civil War, like in every war. They led parts of the civil rights movement. Our community as Muslims in America, we have been part of this nation since its founding. And for most of your viewers to know, the first nation to recognize America officially as a independent country was a Muslim majority country, Morocco. That letter of acceptance still sits at the office of the Secretary of State at the State Department. I don't know if it's there anymore, if they took it down, but that sits there. But what we decided to do was we said, our kids, my kids, our grandkids, I want them to be proud of being an American Muslim. They should know that this country is their country, that this country belongs to them, and they are contributors to this nation. And some bigots who's sitting, Stephen Miller, who's sitting at the White House, cannot change that. Or Sebastian Gorka, actually, the bigger bigot, cannot change that. So we decided to start a campaign, and we're selling merchandise on this, which says we're unapologetically Muslim Americans. Whatever you say, whatever you do, our Muslimness, but more importantly, our Americanness will not change. We will make sure you see it. We'll be loud. We'll be proud. Our kids will be loud, and our kids will be proud. And they'll actually wear it on nice, really fancy hoodies that we've made for people. So we want to make sure that the American story, that the Islam and Muslims are part of that American story, that does not change, and that we're not pushed back by these bigots who want to use our country, our community, as a political tool to score points and to push their racist agenda.
Can you, as I respond, can you put the link, because they're actually really cool hoodies? Just put the link in the website, and even if you're
I
not
have
Muslim,
to see if
even
they're
just
up. I actually have to see if they're up. They might not be up because they're
oh, it's
brand
really
new.
cool. It's actually a really
And
cool
we're
hoodie.
unveiling it at our gala on December 2nd. On Tuesday, we're actually unveiling them there. So I
Well,
don't think
tell
they've
them,
actually gone online.
I'm going to that gala, but tell them what the speakers that you got.
So this is our Empowering Voices Gala. We've got Senator Chris Van Hollen, that we're giving him a Lifetime Achievement Award, who's done
Great.
amazing work on immigration. He's a senator from Maryland, really an awesome person. Congressman Ro Khanna from the Bay Area, from California. He's getting an Empowering Voices Award for all the work that he's done for transparency, his work on the Epstein files with Marjorie Taylor Greene, actually. They worked very closely together, but just his willingness to talk about the genocide in Gaza. So he's going to be getting an award. Congresswoman Delia Ramirez from Chicago will also be joining us for a conversation. She's done amazing work on the Hill. She's the author of Block the Bombs legislation on the House side. We've got Sharaf Mojood, who is a CBS producer who was recently let go of CBS, who will be receiving our media award.
Oh, you giving it to Sharif? That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So
That,
Sharaf was
not know
going to
that.
be, that was a surprise, but I just announced it to the world
Oh,
now. So
Sharif
over the
Mojood,
1,000
folks,
people who are
is
watching this now knows.
Sharif Majood is Emmy, I think, Emmy nominated
Yep.
writer and producer. He was at CBS forever, and he was part of the Barry Weiss purge, a guy who was in the, like, this guy is creme de la creme, who did all the work behind the scenes because of his skin color and and being a Muslim. I'm just going to be blunt. He saw so many other mediocre people let's be honest, get promotions. He has so many stories of so many people that that he helped that would not have gotten their position in front of the camera without Sharif Mojood. He has the stories as his to tell. And Barry Weiss came in and got rid of all the people of color, and Sharif was one of them. So I'm so glad you recognize him. Sharif Mojood, formerly of CBS.
Formerly of CBS. So we've got Sharaf Mojood. We've got activist Mahmoud Khalil and his lawyer, Amy
Oh,
Greer,
fantastic.
who will be receiving an award as well. Everybody knows Mahmoud Khalil's story. And two young men from Harvard who we supported when phony charges were brought against them by the Boston DA because they were participating in peaceful protests at Harvard. One is a Harvard law student, one of the Harvard divinity students, and we were able to get their cases dismissed and support their work. So they'll be getting honored as well. So we've got a lined up program. We're actually sold out. Over 800 people will be attending, and so we're really happy that we're going to be unveiling our unapologetically American Muslim merchandise and program there.
And I think I should be there if you have a seat for me.
You
And
have to. You're already on our list. You've got to be there. Maybe you can do a live from there and talk to your audience from there.
Yeah, why not? And then I actually one of the rare times I might dress up. But today Mark Kelly did something that I want more Democrats to do. He went on with the morning TV panels, and he stood up and spoke out for immigrants and called out this hateful language of third world countries. We need more of our elected officials, especially Democrats, who have a history of throwing people of color under the bus, throwing the woke under the bus. They passed the Lake and Riley Act. Very few of them stood up for Mahmoud Khalil. Chris Van Hollen was one of
Yep.
was the only senator who went all the way to El Salvador and said, "Give me proof of life of Kilmar Abrego Garcia." And because that was in the news, Donald Trump went negative double digits, and then all the pressure was put on him to actually justify why they kidnapped the 230 men. Right. So Chris Van Hollen, folks, people forget he was the only one. Democrats were playing it timid and scared as they always do on race and immigration. Without Democrats, there would be no Lake and Riley Act. And then remember Gavin Newsom threw all the trans people and woke under the bus. James Carville just threw woke under the bus. I want to say this again. Democrats who are listening, you will not go anywhere without the rest of us. You will not succeed without the woke, without immigrants, without black people, without Muslims, without women, without Afghans, without Latinos, without Asians, without LGBTQ. You can't. I know you want to get Chet, you want to bear hug Liz Cheney. She ain't your base. Never has been. It's us. And I saw James
And
Carville
definitely
finally.
don't send her to Michigan next time to campaign.
Christ, yeah, and you can't ignore Gaza. You can't ignore immigration. You can't ignore ignore people of color. Two sins of America: racism and greed. You got the capitalism part kind of now. James Carville's around there, but you still won't tackle racism and white supremacy. And until the establishment does that, you're going to be stuck. You might win a short-term race, but then these people, folks, man, I'm telling you, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Candace Owens, Tucker. Actually, I want to ask you this because people might think I'm crazy, Harris. I,
Yeah.
I travel a lot. You travel a lot. I've been warning Democrats. I say you're not paying attention to what's coming at your six. Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, disinformation, small clips on media. They're winning over people of color, disaffected voters, independents on being more left on the establishment, on Israel, on being America first, and also on calling out the establishment and the elite. If you don't take this seriously, both racism and capitalism, these people are waiting in the wings for 2032. Am I wrong with my analysis? If I am, please tell me.
You
If you
are
disagree.
not wrong. You are not wrong. Let's look at Mamdani. Look at Mamdani. When you look at Mamdani, you see a story of consistency on everything you just said. He didn't throw any community under the bus. He had an agenda, right? He didn't kowtow to the right. He didn't make alliances that he knew was going to come back and bite him. He stayed consistent. It was about the economy, affordability, cost of living, and making New York safe for all of it. Jews, Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, everyone. Right? It was a consistent message. In the morning, he was at the mosque. In the evening, he was at the gay club. In the afternoon, he was at a black church. Right after that, he was at a synagogue. What he found out was that when you're consistent in your message and you're focused and you don't try to appease and kowtow to people, the American people will respond.
And you don't
Districts.
throw anyone under the bus. The
That's what I
message
mean.
of
Don't throw anyone
affordability
under the
for
bus.
everyone.
Yes.
Everyone.
Districts. Why do you think Trump brought him to the White House and had a love fest with him? Districts that went to Trump flipped 70% to Mamdani because Americans want to hear a consistent message, a message of that you're listening to me, that you're not that talking down on me, that you're not throwing my fellow Americans under the bus. If we stay consistent in our messaging against xenophobia, against anti immigration hate, against all types of bigotry, people will respond.
You got to go against the 1%.
Yeah.
And you got to bring the woke with you, Democrat. We ain't going anywhere. I know you hate it, Democratic establishment. We ain't going anywhere. We're your shadow. You cannot abandon race and class. That's why Mamdani won, because he's a brown Muslim man. That's why Barack won, because he's a black man. They could not escape it. They could not ignore it. They attacked him for being people of color. They attacked him for being Muslimy, and they said, "Okay, we can't escape this. We can't throw this on the bus. We can't hide it. We'll lean into it." And because they leaned into it with that race class narrative, they were able to be generational talents. That's just my take. I will end. I kept you longer than I did. I have to
Thank you
take my
so much.
kids
This
to the.
was a great conversation, Waj. And we got
Yeah,
over 1,000 viewers. So that's great.
200 people. No, almost 1,300 people on
1,300. Wow.
on Sunday. I will say I waited until my 49ers beat the Browns. That's why. I said, Haris, just wait till 4. He's like, why? I'm like, I am doing important things. Once my 49ers secure the victory and the Rams lost, thank you, Panthers. Now I need the Vikings to beat the Seahawks. I will finish with this. This clip is going viral. They're deliberately milking it. They always do this. It's bad faith. People who meanwhile have messaged me like, why did you say that gets white people watch? I'm like, I did it. A lot of my crew is white who watches. They applauded me. It was against the white supremacists, the bigots, the hate mongers. I don't take anything back. If you are a hate monger, I meant every word. If you are pissed off, good. Hit dogs holler. Weak chins, weak knees, and weak cankles. However, I invite you. I invite you to drop this narrative of hate, drop your fear, realize it's a losing strategy. It will cause so much damage for so many people, especially your communities, because the communities that voted for Trump are the ones suffering the most. All of this is avoidable. You don't have to suffer like this. Be expansive. Be generous. Come to the barbecue where we have the sweet potato pie and the green beans. We got white folks, black folks, brown folks, atheists, Muslims, Asian folks, beautiful biracial kids, great music, great looking women, great food. That's America. That's the world. That's how it is. Accept it. Be happy. If you don't want to accept it, if you want to be a hate monger, then I'm going to mock you. And I don't know, Haris, my family's saying, don't say it, Wajahat. And I sit there and I think, I'm not interested in being a martyr. I don't think you are either. We're fathers, but I'm like, this is a good fight, man, to go against fascists and white supremacists. And also, I'll say this to really terrify end wokeness, this loser, this freak who hides behind Twitter. I'm a Muslim. Let me go Muslimy if I can. Can I be Muslimy for the 1,300 people watching?
Go for it. Go for it.
Let me super terrify end wokeness and Laura Loomer and all the hate mongers. Being super Muslimy, I believe, Haris, that life and death come from my creator, just like risk, which means sustenance. If the entire world conspires to lift me up, but God doesn't want to raise me, I will be stuck firmly in the ground. On the flip side, Haris, I believe, if the entire world conspires to destroy me, but my creator wants me to fly, I'll soar. That's what I believe. Everyone owes a death. No one can escape death. Elon Musk has tried. He's going to fail. Larry Ellison is trying. He's going to fail. David Sachs is going to fail. The Pharaoh tried. He failed, right? So whatever life I have, I want to make sure I live it to do the best that I can with the limited skills that I have. And if that means triggering the world's worst people and standing up for everybody else, then so be it, Haris. So be it. And I say this as a person who, is not a martyr and is not a masochist. Well, I'm kind of masochisty. But this is the challenge of our life. And
I'll tell you what, Waj. I'll tell you what,
fight.
Waj. People, we're going through an aberration in our country's history, right? I'm hoping that this is an aberration. Those of us who study history, those of us who've been involved in the public space, those of us who are trying to make America a more perfect union, because that is our goal. If you don't speak now, you and your children and your grandchildren will regret it. America needs to remain that constant hope of that shining city on the hill. It's never that full shining city because we're always trying to make this union perfect. It will always remain imperfect because we're human beings. But if you don't, and we don't, and so many others don't, people don't speak up and stand against xenophobia and bigotry and this racism that is so rampant, our children and our grandchildren, no matter if they're white, black, brown, Asian, Hispanic, whatever they may be, they will not look at us in a positive light. So keep doing what you're doing. You're doing amazing work, and we'll see you on Tuesday.
And folks, decide to be the heroes of your children's history books. Don't be the villains and don't be the coward. This is it. This is a generational fight right now. You could feel it. I know you all feel it in your bones. This is it. This is a generational moment and a generational fight. What did you do? What did you do in this moment? Think about that question and think about what your kids and your grandkids will say about you, inshallah. I don't know. I've made many mistakes in my life, but I hope, inshallah, my kids look at me one day and said, Baba, he was kind of weird and he shopped at Costco and drove a minivan and embarrassed us. But you know what? He went against the fascists. And he built Lego sets for us. Folks, take care of yourself. Before I let you go, Haris, shamelessly promote yourself.
Thank you so much. Haris Tarin, Vice President of the Muslim Public Affairs Council. Haris Tarin on X, on Blue Sky, and Instagram and Facebook. Follow us.
And you said your thing is now they can't go to your thing anymore. Your big gala, it's done.
It's full. It's full. But if you have some viewers who want to come and they message you, we might give them a Wajahat exception.
That's dope. I've been there before. It's fantastic. I mean, you really got really good people in one room. So come on by, folks. It's the Left Hook. It's 1,300 people watching. For those who joined us late, this is Haris Tarin. He worked in the DHS. He was the one in part responsible for bringing the Afghans who were abandoned by both administrations in 2021. He left the DHS once he realized these hate mongers were coming in. He went back to MPAC, the Muslim Public Affairs Council. He himself is an Afghan refugee, and I hope people can watch this who came in late to really understand a story of Afghan refugees, of Afghanistan, of the United States' horrible treatment of Afghans, and despite the horrible treatment, what Afghans, immigrants, refugees, and Muslims have done for Americans and American soldiers, and how what Trump and Kristi Noem and all these people are selling is just xenophobia and hate for their failed white nationalist agenda. I have a actual Black Friday sale for terrible capitalists like myself. Everything is for free. I just put up a link. I've done 25% off, I think, for the next 3 or 4 days. It's only $375 per month. $375 per month and only $38 a year. The Left Hook is completely independent. It depends on the kindness of strangers and viewers. If you are a free subscriber and you like what I've been doing, consider becoming a paid subscriber. I've made it even cheaper. $375 a month because I know people are struggling. It goes a long way and allows me to do this and bring on guests like Haris. Everyone, be kind, be informed, take care of yourselves, rest, and please, oh, please don't be a fascist. Thanks, Haris. I'll see you Tuesday.
All right. Thanks, Wajad.